Hi, my name's Shelly, and today I want to talk about all the series that I plan to start in the latter half of 2023. I can't believe it's already June. This is crazy. Okay, so let's just get started because there's actually a big stack that I'm looking at right now, and I didn't realize how big it was considering I just did a video on about all the series that I'm in the middle of. So I have a lot to read this year. Let's start with what I plan to read this month. And I actually just got this copy of The Stardust Thief. This came out, I believe, last year, and it got really great reviews. And I don't know why I didn't pick it up, but honestly, I'm excited to read it. I don't really know much about it. I think there's gin in it, and I think it takes place in a desert. And I just love reading desert books in the summertime. So I'm excited to start this. And it's a pretty small book. Plus, I think the sequel comes out in the fall, so I will be ready for that. The next series I want to start this month is The Starless Crown by James Rowling. This is a sci-fantasy book. I believe James Rowling is known more for his thriller work. I don't read thrillers, so I don't know. But I haven't heard anybody talk about this. And it has decent reviews on Goodreads, so I'm excited to start it. I actually have the audiobook coming in through the library, so once it comes in, I'm going to pick this up. Well, once it comes in and I finish the other books that I'm listening to. Another sci-fantasy series I want to start this year is The Blight and Stars by Maggie E. Kiefer. This is a new release, and I don't know much about it besides the fact that sci-fantasy, and I think there's two enemies like stuck on a planet together. Honestly, the cover's awesome. It looks awesome. This is like right up my alley of stuff I love to read. I picked it up. And I have heard her other series is quite great. So if I do enjoy this one, I will definitely continue on with the other series. So probably add that to the list. I can't remember what it's called right now. I'll put it up here. But I will definitely continue on because I need to read more sci-fantasy, science fiction books. Speaking of sci-fi, the next sci-fi series I'd like to get to is Escaping Exodus by Nikki Dryden. I first heard about this series from Angela from Literary Science Alliance. I generally agree with most of Angela's recommendations, so I think I'll like it. Plus, this cover is probably my favorite cover of all time. I just love it. I would have this on my wall. It is gorgeous. And I think it's a duology, if I'm not mistaken. And it's quite short. And I think it's about living inside of living ships. Like they're in whale, like their ships are whales, I believe, or space whales or something. I don't know. Regardless, short, gorgeous cover. How could I not say yes? So we'll switch it up a bit. And the next series I would like to start is Terry Pratchett's Guards. And this will be the first book, not the first book in the Discworld, but the first book I will be reading from the Discworld. And I have not read anything from Terry Pratchett yet, as I just said. I heard this is quite funny, but it's quite short, and I think I'm going to pick it up when I need a good chuckle. Another series that I would like to start, I'm probably going to start in the fall, is a urban fantasy series by the author Charles D. Lint. And I think the collection is called the Newford Collection, and they're all kind of like standalone books that are connected to each other, so there'll be characters in other books. I read The Onion Girl a really long time ago and have been meaning to pick it up. And honestly, from what I remember, it was I loved it. It was very atmospheric. It takes place in the 80s, so if you're interested in that. Again, it's a pretty short book, and this is the first book in this series. So I really hope to continue on with the series because, again, it's very atmospheric and it's by a Canadian author, and I'm trying to read more Canadian authors. There's something about fall, about like urban fantasy and fall that I'm drawn to. Maybe it's because of like vampires and werewolves and whatever, or Halloween. So I'm definitely going to start this in the fall. It's one of those underrated authors that really needs to get more publicity and more traction because definitely worth checking out. Another urban fantasy I would like to get to this fall is Phase by Victoria Tekken. Now, this is a sub-pub book, and it is an entry in SBFBO 9. That's a self-pub sci-fi fantasy book. Actually, I don't know if it's sci-fi, but it's definitely a fantasy book. And I've heard a lot of really great things about this book. I actually follow her channel, so I'm really curious to check it out. I think it's a YA book about werewolves. Can't go wrong with that in the fall. So the next two are maybe reads. Like if I have time to read them, I'll get to them. The first one is Dark Run by Mike Brooks. I first found out about this book because I was looking for Star Wars books, and this was kind of like recommended. If you like Star Wars, I think it's a space opera with a ragtag crew. I always love that, so I'm more interested. I think he's more known, Mike Brooks is more known for his other series, The Black Coast, which I have yet to read, and I do want to read that, but I think I have to finish a bunch of other series first. So yeah, this is a maybe. I really hope to get to it. May get to is The Three-Body Problem by Xinyin Liu, and this is like a first contact with aliens book. And I've heard, obviously it's a Hugo winner, so obviously it's quite good. I did start the first chapter. I wasn't in the mood for this particular type of read, so I do want to continue on with it, probably in the fall with a bunch of other books that I have planned. So the last four, it's kind of cheating. It's kind of cheating because I've actually already started these series, but I don't remember them, so I have to reread the first book in order to continue on with the series. So the first book is Gods of Men by Barbara Klaus. I read this years ago, and sorry, this is a Sub Pub book. I read this years ago, and I remember really, really enjoying it to the point where I like pre-ordered the second book, but then I just never got around to reading the second book, and now all three books are out, so I have to read it. What is this about? This is about Sable. I'm reading the back because I honestly don't remember. This is about Sable, and in her world, magic is forbidden. And she accidentally kills her baby sister, and now she's on the run. And in this world, I think that there's like hunters that hunt magic users. So she meets a hunter, and basically it's a romance. And I really enjoyed it. It's one of those like romances that's not like a romance book, but like it's a story with romance in it, if that makes sense. So it's a short read, and I already have book 2, and I'm just going to order book 3 once I finish book 2. And overall, yes, I really enjoy it. I think that people who like the David Bode trilogy would like this book, that kind of story. Speaking of the same kind of similar genre is The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Quirk. I read this book when it first came out, and I think I listened to it on audiobook, and I wasn't the biggest fan of the audio narrator. So obviously this book has a lot of details in it, and the third book is coming out this fall. So I think I'm going to have to reread this whole book all over again, but I'm going to do a physical read because, again, like I said, I didn't enjoy the audiobook. So I hope to read this actually this summer because it does kind of feel like a little bit of a summary. It felt a bit summary. For those who are interested, this is about a character named Ren, and it takes place in a Venice-styled world, and she's a con artist, and she swindles her way into a rich family, posing as like the long-lost cousin or something like that, and basically she wants to steal their money. And that's where it starts. But it starts off that way and then just goes a completely different way. So yeah, I need to reread this because there's a lot of details, a lot of characters in it that I need to be reintroduced to. Another Sub Pub book I want to reread is The Voice of War by Zach Argyle. This is the first book in the Threadlight saga. I read this book a couple years ago. And although I remember quite a bit of it, I think I want to reread it in order to continue on with this series. So yes, this is another one I would like to reread and get back into. So the last book I would like to talk about is The 12 Kings of Sherakai by Bradley P. Beaulieu. I read this book 2 summers ago, and I really I don't remember anything about it. I remember I wasn't too crazy about it when I finished it, but honestly, I actually own all of the hard copies. So I think I'm just doing it out of stubbornness because I bought all the books, so I want to read them. So I plan to actually pick up this book this summer because, again, it's like a desertly kind of djinn-inspired world, and gotta read those kind of books in the summertime. Sorry, I lied. There's another book that I want to get to this summer, but it hasn't come out yet, so I don't own a copy of it. And it is Dark Water Daughter, the first in the Winter Sea trilogy or series, I'm not sure, by H.M. Long. And she is the author that did Hall of Smoke, which I read earlier this year. It is a seafaring book. I think it's enemies to lovers, or maybe just enemies. I'm not sure. It looks fantastic, and I love reading those types of books. So anything desert, anything sea and pirates, I love in the summertime. As I was editing this, I realized that I forgot 2 books that I want to get to, or 2 series that I want to get to this year. First one is The Forgetting Moon by Brian Lee Durfee. This is the first in the 5 Warrior Angels. I own the first 2 books of the series, and the reason why I haven't started them yet is because they are a bit on the grim dark side, and I'm not entirely sure that I will enjoy this. And plus they're pretty hefty books, like 800-page books. So I don't know much about this storyline, that it's grimdark, and a lot of the YouTubers that I follow quite enjoy this series, so I do want to give it a go. The next book I forgot to mention before is a classic, The Dragonbone Chair by Tad Williams. This is like a classic, kind of classic, but more like the beginning of modern fantasy. When I'm feeling in the mood for like a classic fantasy, this is definitely what I'm going to be picking up first. Those are all the series that I plan to start this year or next year. I'm sure that there's more that I haven't even heard of or forgot to mention, but yeah, these are the ones that I own physical copies of and I'm ready to get to. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I hope you have a lovely day. Bye!